Hello, everyone. This is Peter Paul Berzola. Hello, everyone. This article in the recent Chronicle omitted the work of Ted Samuel and Jack Phillips. We are making up for their omission. This is Ted Samuel when he was drafted into the U.S. Army in World War II. He was, I think, about 18 at the time. Ted was one of the first San Franciscans to cross the Golden Gate Bridge to go to Treasure Island, and when he was in the U.S. Army in Patton's Third Army, he witnessed the liberation of the Nazi concentration camps. This is General Patton. We don't know where this photo was taken, and I don't see Ted here. Maybe he was at the railroad station, and that's another story coming up. This is one of the inmates of one of the Nazi concentration camps that Ted helped liberate. When he was a sergeant and on duty at the railroad station, there were Russian POWs who were being forcibly repatriated to the Soviet Union. They had been in the Russian army and captured by the Nazis, and they turncoated, and they fought against their former brothers and comrades. These are some of those repatriated soldiers who were slated to go to the gulags in Siberia. This is General Vlasov. He was in the Soviet Army, a brilliant general. He turned against Stalin, and he worked with the Nazis to try to get a liberation for the Ukrainians. He was captured and turncoated. This is the Pasadena Playhouse where Ted Samuel used his GI Bill after World War II to study. There he met his wife and Victor Jory. Victor Jory was a Canadian from the Yukon who emigrated legally to the United States. He joined the U.S. Coast Guard and was the boxing champion. I don't know if he taught Ted, but they certainly knew each other. This is the John O'Connell Technical School, which became KLW's radio station. It was formerly the Ford aircraft engine factory during World War II. Ted was the program manager and later station manager there when I came there. It's one of the programs they brought in from Minnesota Public Broadcasting, Lake Wobegon, and Garrison Keillor, very popular. This is David Fowler, the late David Fowler, fine San Francisco real journalist and consultant to FEMA and the National Fire Academy. He was also the editor of Denial of Disaster. He brought in people like Edna Fisher, Bill Moriyama, Don Giletti, and course, people like myself, all volunteer producers. He was also the editor of the premier earthquake book, Denial of Disaster. People are still denying it. The authors were Gladys Hanson and Fire Chief Emmett Condon. Here is the face cover of Denial of Disaster. Then we had the first AIDS case in media in San Francisco. It was called ARC back then in the 80s. And then, of course, Randy Schultz, who was at the San Francisco Chronicle and wrote a book, was believed to be the first print AIDS victim. Both of these people are dead. Leo Lee was a journalist par excellence. He was the press secretary for Governor Goodwin Knight, also newspaper editor. He founded Western Public Radio, and he worked with Ted Samuel to bring in people who wanted to volunteer and learn radio production and produce programs. This is Peter in Western Australia trying to interview a kangaroo who was hissing, didn't want to be interviewed. This is the controversial Rosario Anaya, an alien immigrant from Bolivia, Cochabamba, which is the Medellin of Bolivia, cocaine capital. And she really lived in Alameda County, but she claimed she lived in San Francisco and ran for the school board. She was connected to a Bolivian cocaine dealer who got busted in Mexico, and this is an excerpt from the lawsuit that she filed to try to get him out of a Mexican prison. He was facing 16 years, and she claimed he tried to burn down her house. She got about a $700 political campaign contribution from Rick Tejada Flores. She manipulated the illegal firing of Ted Samuel. He got a big legal settlement. And she also referred to Ted Samuel and his supporters as dirty people and dirty Jews. Ted recently died. This is Rick Tejada Flores. He does TV and video. He's very good at that, but he wasn't good at radio and certainly not at peepers skills. They forced him out after he took over from Ted Samuel. Bill Moriyama was a survivor of Manzanar, very fine gentleman. He was an expert on blues and jazz. He was referred to by the Anaya people as a fat, lazy Jap. Bill recently died. Well, not recently, about 8 years ago. This is Daniel Del Solar. He succeeded Flores. He used, or tried to use, school district monies and radio station monies to go to South America to work with the Sandinistas and supporters of Che Guevara. This is Don Giletti, who was gay. He put an ad in the Bay Reporter, a prostitution newspaper. Charles Ng saw the ad and came to Giletti's house and brutally murdered him. Also, there was a broadcaster at KALW who propositioned a young student. The broadcaster was warned, don't do it again, but he wasn't fired. This is the mugshot of Charles Ng, who's sitting on death row in San Quentin. And this is Leonard Lake with the beard. Rather than be arrested and tried for S&M murders and other kidnapping, he committed suicide.
from what it was 40 years ago, 50 years ago. And it will continue to change.
Finally, Jack, Leo Lee used to say, the founder of Western Public Radio, where I studied, that when you come into the Western Public Radio, leave that S outside, your politics and agenda. Do you think that some of these people today, or a growing number of media people, are bringing their political and sexual preference agenda into the studios?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I never had anything to do with that end of it. I never made any decisions as to what we would carry in the way of programs. There were people around that were interested in that end of it, but I never was really interested in the program end of it. I had plenty to do. And but there were people around that wanted their world their way. I don't know. Well, I just don't know. I don't want to get into that part of that world.
We see it every day anyway. We know who these people are.
Well, I don't know who said it. I heard some commentary one day on TV talking about people's knowledge of the world around them, where and why and what and how, and this person commented that people that wear green glasses don't see the whole picture. And I think that's true. When you let your politics get into your place of employment, you're making a mistake. And a lot of people do it. The other thing politically, I notice about the political world, TV, print, people don't understand the concept even, or the words, but when they get behind something, they're behind it, and to the point where any facts contrary to what they wish for are unimportant, and they have completely ignored the concept of cost-benefit analysis. Shall we do this? Oh yeah, that's a good idea, wonderful, whoopee-doo. But if we do this, the unanticipated consequences could be horrendous. And I see less and less of that kind of analytical thinking all the time.
So it's more agenda instead of experience and expertise?
Oh, absolutely. It's more agenda than anything. Mm-hmm. And we'll take care of our agenda, and if it happens to hurt you, that's just too bad. So I don't know.
Well, thank you, Jack, through this walk through broadcasting history.
Well, I don't know.
It's been very interesting because you've seen about, 50 years of it?
Yeah.
So there's hardly anybody around like you.
Well, there are a few of us around, but we're officially old boogers.
Thank you, Jack Phillips, for being on the program. This is Peter Paul Brizola. Thanks for viewing and listening.